I've been playing Pokémon since the very beginning, starting with Pokémon Red on the Game Boy. I played almost every Game Boy release after that, but the last Pokémon game I actually finished was Pokémon Platinum.
I'm 37, I'm not old.
So yeah, it's been a while. That's why jumping into Pokémon Legends ZA felt exciting for me, especially because the gameplay and overall structure feel very different from the Pokémon games I grew up playing. I'm about 80% through the game right now, and overall, it's been an interesting experience so far. One of the first things I noticed was the map size. The game takes place entirely in Lumiose City, and while exploration is still there, the world feels tighter and more compact compared to the large region-based adventures Pokémon usually offers. Because of that, the environment can start to feel a little repetitive over time. And honestly, I found myself missing that classic Pokémon journey, traveling across a full region, facing a rival, dealing with an evil team, challenging gym leaders, pushing through Victory Road, and eventually taking on the Elite Four to become champion. That slightly reduced my excitement to push through the later parts of the game. The story itself feels more like a self-contained arc rather than a full-on journey. It's not the deepest Pokémon story ever written, but the lore and character moments are still interesting enough to keep you moving forward. Combat is easily one of the biggest changes here. Battles feel much more dynamic compared to the traditional turn-based system. You're not just selecting moves and waiting for animations anymore. You're actually moving alongside your Pokémon during fights. Positioning matters, timing matters, and aggressive wild Pokémon can interrupt encounters or even knock you out if you're not careful. Because of that, battles feel more active, more engaging, and a bit more unpredictable. It adds a stronger sense of immersion during encounters. Visually, the game also looks solid. Pokémon animations and attack effects feel smoother, and the lighting across the environment looks noticeably improved compared to older titles. Overall, it feels modern. Progression still feels familiar in a good way. You're catching Pokémon, training your team, and building strategies around type advantages. But one thing I did notice is that leveling can feel a little fast, mainly because of the shared EXP system. Your entire team gains experience even when they're not actively battling. So, depending on how much exploring you do, it's pretty easy for your team to end up out-leveling most battles, which lowers the overall challenge in certain parts of the game. One feature I really enjoyed, though, is the presence of alpha Pokémon. These are stronger wild encounters that add an extra layer of difficulty. They're larger, more aggressive, and generally tougher than normal Pokémon. Catching one always feels satisfying, and I found myself actively trying to add them to my team whenever I could. Mega Evolution is also available in this game. It brings back that classic anime-style moment where your Pokémon suddenly powers up and can completely shift the momentum of a fight. The game also introduces rogue Mega Evolution encounters. These are wild Pokémon that have Mega evolved on their own after being exposed to too much Mega energy. When you run into one, the fight feels less like a normal encounter and more like a boss battle. You're dodging attacks, looking for openings, and trying to build enough Mega energy so your own Pokémon can Mega evolve and fight back. Defeating them usually rewards you with their Mega Stone, which makes those encounters feel worth the effort. Just be warned, Mega battles can drag a little if your team isn't prepared for them. Another mechanic is the Battle Zone system and the ZA Royale. At night, parts of Lumiose City turn into battle zones where trainers compete in a city-wide competition called the ZA Royale. The goal is to climb from rank Z all the way up to rank A by winning battles against other trainers. It almost feels like a mix between traditional trainer battles and a live tournament happening across the city. Some fights can actually get pretty tough as you climb higher. But after a while, the structure can start to feel repetitive since you're still battling in the same areas. So for me, it's one of those ideas that's really interesting on paper, but the execution doesn't always stay exciting the longer you play. For players who enjoy competitive play, rank battles add another layer as well. They let you test your team beyond the story and experiment with stronger builds. I haven't spent much time there yet, but it's easy to see how that system could add more longevity after finishing the main game. So the big question is Pokémon Legends ZA still worth playing? For me, I'd say yes, but with the right expectations. If you grew up with the classic Pokémon formula, this will feel very different. But if you're open to a new direction, there's enough here to make it a refreshing experience. And looking at what's coming next with Pokémon Winds and Waves, a full open-world game set across islands and oceans, it really feels like ZA might just be the testing ground. And Winds and Waves could be where everything comes together, combining these new ideas with the larger, more traditional Pokémon journey. Overall, Pokémon Legends ZA feels like an interesting experiment for the franchise. It takes some real risks with its structure and combat while still keeping the core identity intact. For me personally, it started off strong, but the smaller map and repeated environments made me lose a bit of momentum around the middle. Maybe that's just the old-school Pokémon player in me. That said, the combat improvements, the new mechanics, and the overall experience are still strong enough that I want to see it through to the end. And if you've been playing it too, I'd be curious to hear what your experience has been like, especially if you grew up with the older Pokémon games like I did.